Hi there, it's Keith from the Evangelical Free Church, Stony Stratford, and we're continuing our series of short talks in the Gospel of Mark, and today we're in chapter 15, 16 to 32. Now, in verse 15, last week we saw that Pilate pays the typical politician. Wanting to satisfy the crowd, Pilate released Barabbas to them. He had Jesus flogged and handed over to be crucified. And now we get the events of the crucifixion. But we might wonder why Mark gives us these events. What's the meaning behind them? Because really they seem quite random. I love films, and Tracy loves films, and I do like good science fiction films. But one film that's guaranteed to mystify most people with its end is the science fiction epic 2001, based on the book by Arthur C. Clarke. In that, the astronaut concerned seems to go through a psychedelic corridor until he ends up in a hotel room. There he seems to age, and then gradually he seems to revert to an embryonic form, and the film ends. What's it all about? I have my theories about the next step in our supposed evolution. That seems to be the point it's trying to make. But otherwise, it could be very mystifying. And we wonder why Mark is recording what he's recording here. But why does he give it? There's always a reason. Well, what's the information? Well, the information is that Jesus is mocked. We see he's handed over to the Roman soldiers. Verse 17, they put a purple robe on him, they twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on him. And they began to call out to him and say, "Hail, King of the Jews." Again and again they struck him on the head with a staff and spat on him. Falling on their knees, they paid homage to him. And when they had mocked him, they took off the purple robe, put on his own clothes on him, and they led him out to crucify him. Why do we need to know that? Then we see that Jesus is humiliated. Verse 21. A certain man from Cyrene, Simon, the father of Alexander and Rufus, was passing on his way from the country, and they forced him to carry the cross. And again, verse 24. And they crucified him. Dividing up his clothes, they cast lots to see what each would get. It's pretty demeaning, isn't it? Jesus is exhausted by the beating. He can't even carry his own cross to the place of crucifixion. There he's stripped naked, and the soldiers gamble for his clothes. And if that wasn't bad enough, he's still insulted while he's in agony. We see that the crowd are throwing insults at him, and it says, verse 31, in the same way the chief priests and the teachers of the law mocked him and said among themselves, "He saved others, but he cannot save himself. Let then this Christ, this King of Israel, come down from the cross, that we may see and believe." And those crucified with him also heaped insults on him. But what is the point? Crucifixion was a horrible death, but Mark makes nothing really of the actual physical pain that's involved here. The point is this is meant to happen. Jesus said back in chapter 14, verse 49, but the scriptures must be fulfilled. What scriptures? Well, it's an insight to us because it really does show how the Bible holds together. Psalm 22, verse 8 says, "He trusts in the Lord. Let the Lord rescue him. Let him deliver him, since he delights in him." This is about the suffering of an innocent man, and he's being insulted just like Jesus. Again in verse 18, "They divide my garments among them and cast lots for my clothing." Now, isn't that extraordinary? Just as happens to Jesus. But what's it all about? Well, we read in Isaiah 53 and verse 11 these words. "After the suffering of his soul, he will see the light of life and be satisfied. By his knowledge, my righteous servant, will justify many, and he will bear their iniquities. Here we're getting to the heart of Mark's gospel. The miracles, the brilliant teaching, the wisdom, all of this is pointing to this point. By Jesus taking our sins, our rebellion against God, what is he doing? He's justifying us. If we will be forgiven, we can be justified. Isn't that extraordinary? We can have a clean slate before God. That's something that relieves me no end. This is the meaning of Jesus' message. Now we're going to look at that in greater detail next week. Thank you again for listening.